Welcome everybody to Forza Motorsport 7, and today we're taking a look at the 2009 Holden HSV W427. Now this is based on the 4th generation Commodore and the VE iteration of that generation, and this limited edition version was introduced in 2008 to celebrate HSV's 20th anniversary. And you can basically look at this as the ultimate version of the Monaro from the 2000s, because it's basically the same car underneath in a lot of ways, because it's got a large engine up front, rear wheel drive, and a very uncomplicated drivetrain, and very few systems that you'd expect on other four-door saloons from the period. And that's kind of accentuated by the fact that it's got a rather large engine, far larger than any other saloon car that I can think of. It's got a 7-litre V8 engine producing 503 horsepower and 472 pounds-feet of torque, which is a huge amount of torque and horsepower, especially for a late 2000s saloon car. Now obviously other saloon cars nowadays have more power than that, but they generally do not have such a large engine as that. And even though a BMW M5 from the same year had a V10, still nowhere near as large in terms of cubic capacity as this car. So massively impressive in terms of its engine and its power. And like I said, it's really rather uncomplicated in terms of its what it's got going for it. It's very simple on the interior. Got a simple manual gearbox. You've got very limited in the way of electronic systems. I mean, again, you look at a BMW from the same period, and that was really rather complicated, and it was criticised for that complication, the amount of complicated aspects that it has on it. Whereas this, you just have one button. As you can see, it says track there to the right of the vent there, and that's basically just traction control on or off, and that's pretty much it. So I really do like the fact that it's really rather simple. It's not got the most exciting interior, but everything's there that you'd need it to be, and nothing to overly distract you. And it's got plenty in the way of practicality as well. As you can see, plenty of rear leg room there, and it's got a sizable boot as well, as you can see. So practicality, this has the BMW licked as far as I'm concerned. But it does come out at a cost, because it weighs 4,122 pounds, which is 110 pounds more than that M5. But luckily this does have 3 extra horsepower and 89 pounds-feet of torque extra as well. But it's still a on the whole cracking car in terms of its horsepower, even with that extra weight. And on the whole, I do prefer the way this car looks to that M5. Never been a fan of the M5 or most BMWs from that styling period that they had going on. And even though this is far from beautiful, it is at least better looking, and at least does have some nice wheels, some red brake calipers on the go, and really rather nicely discreet spoiler, and 4 nice exhausts on the back as well. So it's not discreet by any means. The BMW is certainly a far more discreet vehicle, because it's essentially just based on the 5 Series. But this is at least a better looking car, and certainly from the rear and the front, and the side profile is fairly good as well. But nonetheless, let's get out onto a track and see what this car can do. Right, we're at Bathurst for one lap, so let's see what this Aussie V8 powered saloon can do. I'll let you listen to the engine for a little while, and then we'll talk more about it. So despite being a really rather large V8, as you can see, it doesn't it revs fairly high for a engine of this type, and it sounds really good as well. Now granted, the M5 with that V10 engine does sound pretty good as well, but I'm more of a V10 fan than V8 fan, sorry, more than a V10 fan, to be honest, especially when comparing this to the M5. And it's a reasonably good handling car as well. It's certainly not as good as an M5, because that has more technology on the go. It's better balanced, and it does obviously have less in the way of weight. But considering this is a really rather simple kind of car in terms of its layout, in the way that it handles its power, the fact it's not got very many in the way of systems is it handles it all of that power and the weight in a traditional but capable way. But the fact that it is in a traditional manner means you can have plenty of fun with it when the mood takes you. And yeah, it's still not a slow car, despite the fact it has more in the way of weight than the M5. It can do 0 to 60 in 4.619 seconds, 0 to 100 in 10.72 seconds, and go on to a top speed of 183 miles an hour. Now granted, the M5 without its limiter on can do 195, and it is actually quicker in terms of acceleration with 0 to 60 in 4.1 seconds, so it's just over half a second quicker than this, and 0 to 109.517 seconds, so it's just over a second quicker than this. But that's no surprise, because even though it does have less in the way of power and torque, it has less in the way of weight as well, and it's also got a more clever gearbox. It's got a flappy paddle gearbox, so the gear changes are a lot crisper and a lot quicker than this. And yeah, this has so much torque that it's easy to spin the wheels off the line or as you go for the gears as well. So yeah, it's not surprised that the M5 is quicker, but on the whole I do prefer this. It's better looking, better sounding, it's more fun for most of the time, and yeah, its simplistic approach to a sports saloon is more in line with what I like out of a car, quite frankly. So yeah, it's a solid car all around, and yeah, it's obviously the last of the big V8 engines to go in a Holden. V8 engines will be smaller than this as time went on, and then obviously up until recently they were canned by GM, to be honest. So unfortunately, yeah, big Holden saloons are no more, which is a shame, because these were really, really great. Everything from the Monaro Coupe up until the most recent Holden were all really, really fantastic in their own way. Not discreet like BMWs or Audis or Mercedes, but yeah, they did things in their own way, and they did it really, really well as well. So yeah, it's a big shame that we're not going to have them anymore, and yeah, large engines are obviously going the way of the Dodo, quite frankly, at the moment, so that's no surprise. But yeah, this is still a great car in its own right, and especially in comparison to modern vehicles. Nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.